Hello, this is Crochet Basics with Jolie, and in this episode I'm going to show you how to make a mermaid tail for a kid, a toddler, ages 3 to probably 7 or 8 or so. So this goes with the little one, the Baby Alive or the doll mermaid tail that I did in the last video. So this is kind of a Dolly and me or a Mommy and me or however you want to put it. Anyway, so what you need is, I'm using acrylic yarn, Red Heart Super Saver this time around, but I'm going to add different yarns in, make it multicolored. So, but if you're going to do it in all one color, make sure that you check your dye lots because you're going to need a few skeins of yarn. So before you purchase, make sure that your dye lots match, because you know it could always be you could be right on point, or it could you know, you could be a shade off or more than just a shade off. I've definitely had that happen to me before, where I ran out of yarn and I had to go back to the store and all of that kind of thing. All right, but I'm going to use a USH 8 hook, which is a 5-point millimeter, and you need stitch markers, a yarn needle for later on, scissor of course, and a measuring tape is always good to have on hand when you're, you know, working with string or what have you. So let's get started. A little knotted. All right, so let's get started. And we're gonna, if you do a slip knot, that's fine. I don't usually start with a slip knot. I do a little crossover kind of a thing on my hook. All right, so, but you'll leave a little tail for later on. And you're gonna chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And in that third chain from the hook, you'll do a double crochet. Okay, so these are our working loops. We're going to go into these loops when we start doing, it's a shell stitch with a single crochet alternating is the stitch itself. All right, so you'll do 51 of these loops. And it should measure, once you start working, it should measure approximately 43 to 45 inches or so, give or take a little. So, but you'll do 51 of these, and you'll mark your center stitch, your center loop. You'll mark it with a stitch marker. And also, if you move your hand up as you're going, then you'll know exactly where you're going to do your double crochet. So it makes it go, you know, a little bit faster. Just a tiny little bit faster. So this is my 26th stitch, so I'm gonna stick a stitch marker on it so that I know where the center is. So for later on, you know. And these little plastic jammies, they work perfect. These little plastic safety pin type things. So that's my last one, 51 is what I said we were doing. Okay, so what you're going to do here is you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And you want to try and work around the double crochet and leave the chaining. So if it shows, the double crochet usually bows out, and I'm sorry, the chaining bows out, it's curved a little, and then the double crochet is a bit bulkier because of the wrapping. You know, you wrap over the yarn, you yarn over. Alright, so in this first one you're going to do 5 double crochet, and that's your shell stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in the next one you're going to do a single crochet, and the single crochet is what opens up your shell stitch. You know, it makes it fan out. Okay, and then you're just going to repeat that until you get to the last one. Alright, so 5 double crochet in the next. And there's no chaining in between the double crochet, the shell stitch, and the single crochet, in case you didn't know or you forgot. Okay? So at this point, I'm at the end. And at the end, I'm going to do a half shell, which is a small shell, you know. It's 3 double crochet. So I did my 3, blah, blah, blah. A little tongue twisted. All right, I did 3 double crochet, which is like a small shell. All right, I'm gonna chain 1, turn my work. All right, because this is worked, primarily this is worked back and forth. And it's nice when the shell is worked back, the shell stitch is worked back and forth, because it really gives it texture and it pops it out, you know, it makes it lively, I guess. I'm not sure. But it makes it nice and rippled and textured and all that kind of pretty stuff. Alright, so you'll do your 3 double crochet in the last. And that's a small stitch or a half shell or whatever, you know. And then you'll slip stitch 1. So you'll chain 1. Then you'll go right back in to where you just did your last double crochet. And you'll do a single crochet. And then you're just going to work back. And you're going to, you know, it's a pattern, so it repeats. So everywhere that you have a single crochet, you're going to do 5 double crochet. And at the very top of the shell where you have the 5 double crochet, you're going to go in to the center one, the center stitch, and do a single crochet. So, and then you'll repeat that, of course. So this is my first single crochet. So I'm going to do a shell. I'm going to do 5 double crochet. And if you need refreshers, or you know, you're looking for other patterns and stuff, subscribe. I have plenty of patterns. My first tutorials that I put up, I teach you pattern reading and different stitches and such, and a bit of yarn knowledge and stuff, so that you know what's going on yarn wise and things like that when you're preparing to do you know, different projects and such, and you want to work with different yarns and different hooks and all that kind of thing. And buying yarn also. Alright, okay, so we did our single. Now here's our single from the previous row, so we're going to do a shell. So I got a double in there, double crochet. So here's 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, and then you'll skip 2. The rule of the shell with the single crochet in between is you skip 2. So I just did my single crochet, so I'll skip 2, which leaves me to my single crochet from the previous row, and that's where I'll do my shell, in case, you know, you didn't know, or, you know, you're unsure. So you'll just repeat that for the whole row. Wherever there's a single crochet, you know, in the center, you do your shell, and at the top of the shell from the previous row, you'll do a single crochet with no chaining or anything in between. So we're at the end of row 2 here, and what you're going to do is you're going to do your single at the top of your shell, and then you're going to yarn over and into the first chains that you made that, you know, when we first started row 1, okay, you'll do 2 double crochets. So 1, 2, chain 1, turn your work, and then you'll go right back into that first one and do a single crochet. And then you'll skip over and you'll do your first shell. Now you'll just, okay, so now you're just going to repeat row 1 and row 2 repeatedly for many, many rows to come. Actually, for every 2 rows is about an inch, measures approximately an inch, sorry, depending on the type of yarn and if, you know, you're using the same hook and all that kind of thing. All right, so for the next 58 rows, approximately, depending on the, you know, the size of the kid you're making this for. If you're making this for like a smaller kid, you know, you don't have to do that long, because there's we're gonna add more in. You'll be able to make it bigger later on, you know, after it's all said and done or whatever. That's the whole point of the loops on top, is for a decorative finish, but you can also make it a little longer. Very adjustable pattern, pretty much, you know, if the length isn't, you know, the shells will just be going in a different direction, but it'll be same thing. Okay, so for the next approximately 58 rows, depending on the length that you want, 60 rows, like, you know, total, because then we're still going to do a couple of more rows of like single crochet and all that kind of thing before we even add the tail on. All right, so you'll just repeat this row 1 and row 2 just the way I showed you, and I will be back when you know, when we're ready to finish more. All right, so you'll just repeat that. So I have 60 rows in at this point. So let me show you measuring So it is going to be bigger than this, a little bit bigger. You can make it bigger if you like. You don't have to do, you could do more. Of course, you know, always your choice. And one thing you should remember or take into consideration or what have you, for every 2 rows of, you know, the shell stitch with the single crochet in between, every 2 rows measures about 1 inch, because when you do the single crochet in between, you know, it takes it down. So you're not going to have 2 inches per double crochet rows, per 2 double crochet rows, if that makes sense. Okay, so this is what I have so far. This is about 60 rows in, and I got about 31 inches. Okay. You could do it longer if you like. I just said as many rows as you like. And I think we did 50 or 51 loops around. Okay. And with that, I got about 21 inches across, so that's 42. Give or take a 1/2 inch or so, you know, or a 1/4 inch or what have you. So this is what it looks like so far. Okay, I hope you could see the whole thing. I started in the light pink and I moved down to a dark pink, a purple, and then a light gray. So what I'm going to do here, because I want to have a straight edge. So if you watch the mermaid tail that I made for the Baby Alive, then you know I want you know, a flat edge for the bottom, so that when we attach it and all that kind of thing. Alright, so I'm just going to do 2 rows of single crochet on the bottom. You finished your corner, either a double crochet or it was a single crochet. Only one of either or. Okay, so depending on how you started yours. And from here, I'm just going to do 2 rows of single crochet, so I'll chain 1 and I'm going to pick up all the stitches across. Alright, so I'm going to do a chain 1, turn my work, and do another row of single crochet. So you should have, if it's the same size as me, you should have between 145 and say 150 single crochets across the bottom. Okay, so what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to, okay, remember we put our stitch marker in the top when we first started, and that was the center of I'm sorry, that was the center of the loops, the starting chain 3 or chain 2 double crochet loops that we started with. Okay, so I'm gonna follow that down to the bottom, and that's how I'm gonna make, that's how I'm doing my fold. Okay, so it should be, you know, more or less it should be even. If you did multicolors, it should line up. You shouldn't have any, you know, wackiness or whatever. Okay, so what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to cut my gray because I'm not going to finish off in that. So I'm going to pin the bottom. Okay. Let's see. trying a new angle if you haven't noticed. So I got the camera next to me and I have to keep leaning back to see what I'm doing in the screen, because I'm trying to make it so you know, everything stays in frame and all that kind of thing. I don't think it's working. Okay, so but show you. Okay, so you can measure, of course. Follow your stitch marker down. Measure the edges to make sure it's even. I'm just going to pin it up so that these are to the center. My very ends are to the center. And if you haven't guessed, I'm going to wait until the end until I'm done to weave in my ends, because sometimes when I weave in, if I'm still working on a project, I can end up pulling out my weaved end, if my weaved end with, like, you know, a sewing, if I'm using a yarn needle to stitch it up, or if I'm crocheting an edge or whatever. So sometimes it's just better to leave your all of your tails, you know, as many as whatever, till the end of the project, till you're done with your last stitch, of course. Okay, so I'm gonna pin these just to hold them in place or whatever. And you can always, you know, if you, what do I want to say? You can always go back and remeasure after you finish the first side or what have you. Okay, and make sure that, you know, you got it right or what have you, which is always good to do for bigger projects and stuff like that. Stuff, you know, kind of like this. And I'm just going to pin it on the edge here so that it just stays nice. Okay? So I was thinking I would finish off in the dark purple that I have here. You know, finish this off. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show you anyway. But I'm going to come across here and close up this. I'm not even in frame. I'm going to come across here in a single crochet and close this off. Alright, so let me go get my yarn. So I got my purple yarn. I'm going to finish it off in the dark purple, the tube. Now, also one other thing to note is that this is a toddler or, you know, child width. So I do have another mermaid tail for an adult. It's wider, but more or less the same pattern, just wider. Okay, so with this one I'm not going to pleat. So with this one I'm not going to do the pleats that I did on the Baby Alive mermaid tail that I did. Okay. Alright, so going in on the corner, and what you're going to do is you're going to attach whatever color you're going to do your border in. And what was I going to say? So, and if you don't have like the length at this point, when you get to the top, you can always add in a few more rows. Of course, I try and make these adjustable if you don't feel you have the length or you don't feel you have the width and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to go in the purple and attach right in the corner. Chain one, and you're going to go through all both layers. All right, so you're going to pick up both sides so that we seal up the bottom. And if you don't want to crochet it, you can always sew it, but this border goes across the bottom and up, and then around the whole top. So something to think about finishing, you know, finishing touches or what have you. All right, so I'm just going to do a single crochet across until I get to my middle stitch marker, and then I'm going to start working up. And you want to hold the pieces together as flat as possible. You know, you want to squeeze them together so that you know you're getting a nice seal, or you know, they're nice and smooth and not you know, wiggly warped or whatever, or accidentally cinched up or something, you know. So if you need to move your stitch marker over, you know, to keep it flat, that's fine too. I'll show you what I mean. So if you need to move that over to hold it nice and flat. So I'm at the end here, and I'm going to make sure that I catch it nice and good. Nothing loose on this. So from here, okay, I'm just going to catch the other side just, you know, once, just to make sure everything stays in place as I'm working up and around. So I'm going to come across, sorry, move my stitch markers out of the way. So from here, you're going to try and catch, you're going to catch both edges, but only, you know, not all the way up. You're not going to do this the whole length up the back side. Actually, you're only going to do it a little ways, just to keep the bottom together. And with this, when you're working a border like this, where you're attaching two sides of crochet that's not a flat or whatever, because there's chaining in here and double crochet and all of that good stuff. All right, you want to make sure that you're not adding too much too many stitches, and you know, like you're not putting in too many, and you're not putting in too little, because if you put in too many, it'll go wavy on you, and if you put in too little, it'll cinch. You won't have the, you know, the stretch, or the, what's the word? I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words on this video. So I talk too much. But you won't have the stretch. You won't have the movability or what have you. You know, it'll kind of cinch a little bit. So you always want to, you know, pay attention with that. And that's with anything, any kind of border that you're going to do like this, where you're putting two edges together that are not, you know, a single crochet or, you know, like a regular stitch, because this is all chaining on the ends and single double crochets and stuff. And now you're not going through, you're not picking up the front. You're just picking up these two edges. Okay, so make sure you don't pick up the front, because then you wouldn't be able to get in it. Okay, so now I'm only doing sealing it in the back side a quarter of the way. I'm not doing it all the way up. I want, I like it open. It makes it easier to get in and out, you know, if you truly want to seam it all the way up, you know, but then it's like a sleep sack, and sometimes it's, you know, without a zipper, it's kind of hard to get in and out of a sleep sack, or a, you know, kind of like a sleeping bag or whatever, but it's crochet, so it wouldn't be a sleeping bag. It would be a beautiful sleep sack. Anyway, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to only working on one side of the stitches here. So, and the side that I already seamed up is the side that I'm going to work up. Okay? So I'm just going to continue on with the single crochet until I get to the top, and then I'm going to do a nice decorative big shell stitch across. So I will meet you at the top. Alright, so I'm reaching my corner here. I'm reaching my corner, and with corners, when you do a border, when you do any kind of corner or what have you, you always want to add extra stitches in, or like a chain 1 or a chain 2 or something like that, so that when you turn the corner that it'll lay nice and flat, because if not, it'll fold or curl, you know. So that's with anything. That's with this. That's with any, you know, thing that you're making. Whenever you're fillet crocheting flat, a flat piece, a blanket, a placemat, a mat, coaster, whatever it is, you know, trivet, even shirts and things like that and whatever. you should always add an extra couple of stitches, or like a slip stitch or 2 slip stitches and stuff like that, so that you're turning the corner, because it'll curl up. I'm telling you, it'll curl up and it won't ever lay flat, no matter if you block or what have you. That just, it doesn't work. All right, so let's see, 1, 2. I'll chain. I did 2 in 1, 2 single crochet. I'm gonna chain. I chained 1, and then I'm gonna do 2 more single crochet in the corner. All right, so now from here, I'm at the top. All right, so from here, we have our loops that we started out, the opposite, you know, the bottom of our loops that we started out, the chain 3 double crochet loops. So I'm just going to do a 7 double crochet shell. So we were doing the 5, sorry, we were doing the 5 for below. So now for here, I'm just going to start shelling. So 7 double crochet in the loop. So it makes it a nice fuller, wider shell. So, and then you'll, you know, skip over, and you can do a smaller shell, or, you know, however you want to do your top edge is all right with me, right? The good thing with this is that if you finished off the whole bottom or whatever, you know, you don't have to do just one row. You know, you can do like a few rows going up, and then you're giving yourself a little bit of length, you know, room to grow or whatever. So, and even if, you know, if the kid that you're making this for outgrows it, then you can always add outgrows it lengthwise, you can always add a few more of these rows on the top. So that's good, you know, for adjusting, really. So for now, I'm going to leave this in my stitch marker from the very beginning. I'm just going to crochet around it, which is going to be a pain in the butt, but I just want to make sure I don't lose that, just in case, for some reason, until I'm done. So here, I'm at my corner. So we're going to turn the corner again. So in this one, you'll do 2 single crochet. You'll chain 1, and then go right back in and do another 2 single crochet right in that last one, that last stitch or chain, you know, whatever you have on yours. Okay, and then you'll just start working down. But if you want, you know, you can always add another row or more, just like I said, you know, and then you would just pick it up right where your first single crochet is before you turned, before you did the chain, and then you would just work back and forth like that, just like we did for the rest here. If you wanted to, you know, add length to it coming up on the top, or if you wanted to do, you know, a few different colors or some kind of something. Okay, so after that, you'll just work down like we did the first time until you get to your split. And then we have to get past our, you know, where we attached on our bottom seam and seal up the second side. So once you get down to where it meets, all right, you can just go right in and pick up each single crochet that you made. It's not a big deal. It's not really going to bother anybody because it's on the legs, it's on the feet, you know, so it's not, you're not sitting on it or, you know, anything kind of like that. So you could just go right through the single crochets you first made and do one in each, following it down, you know. So once you get to the bottom of that, you know, we're going to, you know, now close up this side over here. So you should have already, you know, did a stitch straight through on the corner. So you're just gonna work exactly how you did on the other side and close it up. One single crochet through both sides, the front and back of the tail of the, well, the tube. All right. That showed, because the way my camera is, I have to keep moving to see if I'm catching, if I'm going out of frame. I have to keep turning my head. Anyway, so what you would do is, you know, pull the tail when you get to the end, snip off, of course, and you'd weave that in, you know, at your leisure. So this is what the back side looks like. So here's the top. That's what the top looks like. Sorry, the camera's so shaky. And there's our seam. And it meets up at the bottom. We only did the bottom. I think this is about 20 rows. The gray that I have here. Let me look at my pattern. Yeah, okay. So the gray is about 20 rows. So about 20 rows up is where you'll, you know, stop attaching or what have you. All right. And then we're attached here. So it's more like a sleep sack at this point, and I didn't do the pleats. You can pleat it if you want, or, you know, drop stitches at the last few rows or what have you. You know, however you want to adjust the pattern, as always, is your option. So at this point, we'll put this aside and we'll work on the bottom fin. All right, but just to give you a measurement. So including the decorative row that we just did, the edge or whatever, I got 32 inches from top to bottom. And this will, you know, this will stretch out some and whatever with wear and tear and all that kind of thing and washing and stuff like that. And then across I got almost 21 and a half. I'm at 21 and a quarter, and then I told you, you know, in previous videos, whenever it's a curved item, I always add a little smidgen to the sizing. Alright, so whatever color you're going to do your bottom fin in, because right now we just have a giant sleep sack, is really what it looks like to me. So, and I'll show you, this is one way to do the bottom, and I'll show you another way to do the bottom with the pleats, so that you see both ways, and then, you know, you could decide how you want to do it, how it makes you happy, of course, you know. So I like the pleats. The pleats are pretty, and it makes it go in, and, you know, mermaid tails and fish tails and all that kind of thing, they always go in at the bottom. So, alright, put that aside, or you can weave in your ends, whatever you would like to do.